What it do, Cucks? It's your boy, the Hater, and it's time for Bash at Berlin review. I almost said Bash at the Beach for a second. Great American Bash, Bash at Berlin, penis in Uranus. It doesn't matter what you call it. I did not enjoy this pay-per-view. Now, I'm sure a lot of people did because it had a lot of things that I think would be enjoyable by like normal, modern day fans. But as far as I'm concerned, nothing here happened that was not predictable and was not irrelevant, right? Everything was either predictable or irrelevant. There wasn't anything that mattered that happened that couldn't have been predicted by literally anybody that watches wrestling. So, first of all, I correctly predicted that Cucky Rhodes and Kevin Owens, also known as Cucky Owens, would open up this pay-per-view because they sure as hell are not closing it. That being said, the match itself was, in my opinion, horrible. Now, again, you know what I mean? It's one of those situations where I do believe that a lot of people will have liked this match. It's the kind of match that people could like, but I didn't like it at all for one main reason. Well, two main reasons. First, there was a spot where Cucky Rhodes tries to climb the turnbuckle, presumably to do the Cucky cutter, but it didn't really work. Now, with all that in mind, he went for it, and it didn't really get it done as far as I'm concerned, but nevertheless, he went for it, right? And he kind of like hurt his knee, right? So he sold this injured knee situation that is kind of plaguing him a little bit, right? Kevin Owens was like, he like reacted to it, basically being like, oh no, like, is this fair? Blah, 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 bleep, 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 right? Nevertheless, the match continued, and ultimately, the match ended with Cucky Rhodes predictably beating Cucky Owens. Now, there's a few things wrong with this. Number one, the thing that's the worst about it is the predictability. But equally stupid is the idea that for some reason, Cucky Owens isn't capable of consistently kicking out of moves, right? So Cucky Rhodes goes for his triple crossroads, right? Now, the crossroads itself, irrespective of the fact that there's a situation where he does three of them sometimes, the crossroads itself is a finishing move, correct? Correct, So Cody does two out of the three crossroads that he does in the trifecta, and then Kevin Owens counters the third one, and then he acts like nothing happened, right? You just took two finishers. I understand a third one is coming, but just because you counter the third finisher doesn't mean that you no-sell the first two finishers, which is exactly what he did. He completely no-sold the first two crossroads that he took from Cucky Rhodes, right? Likewise, speaking of no-selling, Cody Rhodes takes two stunners and kicks out of both. Okay, I get it. That's what Cody Rhodes does. But, the stunner is supposed to be like a very protected move, but fine, right? The match eventually ends when Cody Rhodes hits, like after a few minutes, he hits another crossroads. Essentially, he hits the third crossroads that he was doing, and then Kevin Owens gets pinned. So wait a minute. He just completely no-sells two crossroads, and then eventually, a few minutes later, after he's taken no beating, he takes the third crossroads, and that's it. But the first two don't count. The first two are not like real moves. What's that all about? Anyways, for that reason, I didn't particularly like that match. Then it was time for Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, who finally beat the Unholy Union. I made a video that's going to be released probably tomorrow about how the WWE draft is a complete waste of time and how basically Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill were SmackDown's number one pick on night one and number one pick on night two, and Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, also known as the Unholy Union, also known as the Unholy Jobbers, were a supplemental night one pick, I think, So it's like, shouldn't the number one picks, like the two number one picks of SmackDown, not just the two number one women, the two number one picks of SmackDown, shouldn't they just be plowing through the supplemental jobbers, And eventually they did because they won the match, but up until now, the Unholy Union has been presented as being superior, and rightfully so, because quite honestly, it's like they've exceeded expectations, while Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill have underperformed. The match was nothing to write home about. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill win with that little pushing, German suplex essentially thing that they do. Whatever. Then we had the worst match of the night, in my opinion, CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. As far as I'm concerned, Drew McIntyre may as well just be released at this point because he took a mastodonic beating and a mastodonic burial, right? I can never, and I mean ever, take Drew McIntyre seriously as a main eventer again. It's not possible. At best, he can be a convincing contender for the Intercontinental title, which is now where he ultimately belongs. It's really that simple. You know what I mean? There's no reason to discuss this any further, but all you need to know is that despite it being a strap match, which is a match that doesn't require someone to get buried, I really thought that the way the match would end, before they even did it, I thought it was going to be like the Eddie Guerrero JBL situation, right? Maybe like CM Punk, as Drew McIntyre is carrying him, Drew McIntyre hits the corner, CM Punk hits the corner. They do this. In the end, CM Punk hits a go to sleep, takes the bracelet, and hits the corner. That's not what happened. What happened instead was CM Punk did like 5 go to sleeps. Like he would touch a corner, do a go to sleep. He touched another corner, do a go to sleep. And I'm like, all right, maybe now Drew McIntyre is going to counter this, right? Nope, you didn't counter anything. You just took them all, right? So as far as I'm concerned, Drew McIntyre, I have no reason to see him ever again on TV. He has been completely buried. I don't care what people say. I don't care if he becomes the next world champion. I don't care if he wins the next 3 Royal Rumbles. As far as I'm concerned, he's been completely buried. And I do not care about him anymore. Nor do I care about CM Punk, so it's not like anyone benefited from this. But I don't care, As far as I'm concerned, just release him now. Get it over with. He can go to AEW and go wrestle like MJF or something. Maybe it'll make somebody happy there. But it's not going to work in WWE anymore. Nobody cares. Next, we have the Terror Twins, which is a name they seem to be going with. Like, I don't understand how this is even a thing. But whatever. The Terror Twins are not announced as the Terror Twins, but, you keep hearing Michael Cole talk about it. They come out and they have a match against the Judgment Day. This match was neither good nor bad. This match was exactly what one would expect this match to be. You know what I mean? Nothing really strange, nothing really special, nothing really intriguing. It's basically just a random match that involves the people that it involves. It's really that simple. But, everything that you would expect to happen happened, right? At a certain point, the Judgment Day, interferes, and basically they're fended off by Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley pins Liv Morgan after the Riptide. I don't know why this match had to be on a pay-per-view if nothing special happened at all. Rhea Ripley just beat up Carlito. She picked him up in an electric chair and dropped him face first onto the apron. And it's like, obviously the men cannot attack Rhea Ripley, but it's like she's beating up, she's throwing around Carlito, and then Liv Morgan starts beating her up. You know what I mean? So it's just silly, but nothing you can do about that. That's just how the match works. For what it was decent. But this match should have just happened on Raw. I don't think this match needed to be on pay-per-view at all. But here we are. Finally, and after a long-ass time, we have Gunther versus Randy Orton. I don't know. Apparently, the stipulation was if Orton wins, him and Gunther trade places. Like, Gunther goes to SmackDown, Orton goes to Raw. I see. So, there you have it, cuckolds. That's kind of weird. That means that, Gunther wouldn't even get, a rematch, basically, more or less, right? Nevertheless, none of that is something we have to worry about because the match ended as we thought it would end. Basically, all that happened is this. The match started. They do a bunch of crap. The match takes forever. It's slow and boring. Randy Orton matches are generally slow. Gunther's not known to have exciting matches as far as I'm concerned. But this was too much. Eventually, the worst part of the match was the finish. Randy Orton sets up one of the announcers' tables, and then he also sets up the steel steps, right? And they fight around there. Orton backdrops Gunther onto the steel steps. Then he backdrops him off of the steel steps onto the table, breaking the table. Then Orton takes Gunther. This is 30 minutes into the match, by the way. He takes Gunther and throws him in the ring. After this, Randy Orton starts doing the taunt like he's going to hit the RKO. So he's not going to hit the RKO. He does this. He goes for the RKO in this very, like I said, this match was deceptively slow. But even if it weren't, this part was definitely super slow, right? So basically Orton's going for it. he just kind of like waits there for like what appears to be like a second and a half. Then he goes for the RKO. Gunther just pushes him. Like I never understood how when Orton gets pushed off by people as he does the RKO, he lands the same way that he would otherwise. But when he misses the RKO, he's like in more pain. You know what I mean? I don't really understand. Like maybe because the guy he was pushed, I guess. I don't know. Nevertheless, this happens, and basically as Orton is getting up, Gunther comes up from behind him and puts a sleeper on him. This whole sleeper sequence takes about 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Because Orton is fighting it, getting out of it. Gunther's putting it back on. Eventually, Randy Orton passes out, and Gunther wins by, I guess, submission. I don't know what you even call this anymore. You know what I mean? Like a technical submission, if you will, like where nobody like tapped out, but nevertheless, somebody did lose via a submission maneuver. So then after this, Gunther cuts a promo in German. To be honest, I stopped paying attention. I don't care. During this match, I fell asleep, and this was not an exciting match. It was a good match in the sense that it was long and it involved Gunther and Randy Orton. So this is the kind of match that a lot of people would give 5 stars to, but I didn't enjoy it in the slightest. You know. Now, primarily the reason I didn't enjoy it was the primary reason. There was many reasons, but the primary reason was the match was too slow. You know. But beyond the match being too slow, the match was also extremely boring, and most importantly, was extremely predictable. Like, obviously, Gunther wasn't going to lose at Bash in Berlin. You know what I mean? I actually thought it would have been better for him to win the title at Bash in Berlin. But nevertheless, they went with this philosophy instead. Good for them. I ain't got nothing to say about that, cucks. But the facts are what the facts are, you know? At the end of the day, this was not a good pay-per-view, and I did not enjoy it at all. You know what I mean? It was boring. It was mistimed. It was so much of jobbers. Like 5 years ago, everybody in this pay-per-view would be feuding over the Intercontinental title. You know what I mean? Randy Orton is also a jobber at this point. He wasn't looking too good in the sense that like he just kind of looks like old. It's kind of weird because he's not that old, but he just looks kind of like beaten up. You know what I mean? So I did enjoy it. I give it a 2 out of 10. And better luck next time, cucks.